my good friend, with Brother Cohen, is our senator here, our senator here. To our new executive director, volunteer executive director, Miriam Kirk. You'll hear more about her at lunch tomorrow. I usually start with a little bit of humor, and one of the subjects, even though it's a serious subject, I talk about kids that go off. And just recently, there was a story about two Hasidic kids that wanted to do their new thing, and they walked into McDonald's, and one of them said, "Puri chato shano kain kalachon." You ready to eat the sandwich? And the guy said, "Hey, you shigabista, you crazy? You off the barrel." He said, "Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus." It goes even further. One of them said, I still feel being Hasidic. He said, "Well, why don't you go to the base?" He said, "But I still feel Hasidic." He said, "Well, take off your shramin." He said, "But I'll still feel Hasidic." He said, "I'll tell you what to do. In the morning, say Baruch Shema before Hayyim." He said, "Never. Yeah. I remember there was a little bit of a discussion where a family was arguing what to name the kid in Muncie. They went to a therapist. How do you decide they want the mother's family, the father's family? These people, they were fighting about it. They decided everybody will write a name, and they'll put it in a hat. They'll put it in the Zadie's hat. And whatever name they pick out, that's what they'll name the kid. I want you to know this is the only kid in Muncie whose name is 7 1/8. Anyway, for years, I speak about the issue of boys and girls that are challenged. I'm not too crazy about the word off the terror or kids at risk, so I use the word challenge. And when I opened up the first school of this kind, Muncie Academy for Girls, about 10 years ago, parents would call me after 2 weeks and say, "How's my Chaya doing?" I said, "Well, she's in school." I said, "But how is she doing?" It's already 2 weeks. So when I was a little younger and a little more aggressive, I would say to parents, for 16 years, you helped arrange for the kid to go off, and you want me to do it in 2 weeks. Wait a couple of years. And that's what I believed 15, 20 years ago, and I believe that today. It's a process. I want to talk about that process for a few minutes. I always felt that, and I'm sure you've told parents the same thing, whatever Torah you put into the child, or in the school that she went to, whatever you put into the child is still there. And maybe when she's 14, 15, 16, or a little boy, it's buried deep down. It's covered with anger, it's covered with pain, but it's there. And at one time, we used to think that if the parent or the Rebbe put it in there with anger, or yelling at the kid, and the parent yelling at the kid, Shabbos, Kashri, yelling, I said to myself, it's buried so deeply, it'll never come out. I've changed since then. I literally believe that Torah has such energy, has such mitzvahs, that even if it's put in saw Rashad speaks on the word Kol Yaakov. They tell a story that the Zilberstein in Bnei Brak wanted to open a yeshiva in Beit Dagon in 1948. And he went to Rashad and asked him, where should I build a yeshiva? In the middle of the town, in the corner of the town, because the Gemara that said you should learn Torah away. Rashad told him to build it in the middle of the city. And he built the yeshiva. And Rav Zilberstein walked in one day and saw an older gentleman sitting in the Beis Medrash learning. And he asked him, what are you doing here? He said, let me tell you. I was in a battalion in 1948. I was in the army. And we tried to capture Beit Dagon, which is now around Congo. And were repelled by the Arabs. We made another attempt after we lost some soldiers, and we went back, and we were repelled. Before the third attempt, there was a young Orthodox boy in the army and said, I have a Mishnayos. Let's learn the Mishnah. And this older gentleman said, I never heard Mishnah. I didn't know Torah. But I remember him saying over the Mishnah, he said, we went and we captured the town. He says, 40 years later, I was walking through the city, and there was this building. And I heard this enchanting melody that was in my head from 40 years ago. And I walked inside, and they were learning. And that's why I'm here today. Kol Yaakov. The Kol of Yaakov, the Kol of Torah is so strong that 40 years later, this enchanting melody caught his attention. People always come to me and say, what's happening with Yiddishkeit today? Is it exploding? Is it imploding? We have so many kids off. We have so many molestations. We have so many divorces. We have so many Muslims. We have so many Jews going to prison. What is happening with Yiddishkeit? I want you now to take a few seconds and think back. Take 5 or 10 seconds. Think back to Yom Kippur. The last Yom Kippur. When you were in shul, and you sat in shul, and it was Nila time, and you sat a whole day, and you cried, and you davened, and you prayed, and you came to the end of Nila. And with all your voice, with all your courage, you said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And after that, with even more power, you clenched your fist and you looked up to God and said, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchus Olam, and you said it 3 times. And after that, with whatever power you had, whatever love for Hashem, whatever feelings you had, you said, Adonai Yehu Elohim, Adonai Yehu Elohim. And you said it 7 times. Think back. Think of what was going on with you. 50,000 Jews in Uman were saying the same thing. 200,000 Jews in Brooklyn were saying the same thing. 20,000 men and women in Lakewood were saying the same thing. 300,000-400,000 at Shul yelling, Adonai, Hu Elohim. My friends, I don't care what the bloggers say. I don't care what the Wall Street Journal said, what the Daily News said. I don't care about that. Adonai, He's our God. And I don't for a minute want to discount the problem. Don't think for a second that I don't worry and I don't sleep about what's going on in college. Don't think for a second. It's bad. It's getting worse. And we have to do something about it. And there are probably more girls and boys going up for the first time. And they're younger. But I don't know who will him. God is our God. The only God. Yiddishkeit is not imploding. It's not exploding. It's being battered. For shame God. Every person in this room, every therapist in this room, and I think about this all the time. This week, we said, "V'asali Mikdash v'shachanti b'socha." We make a Mikdash and Hashem will rest. And the Mephoshim say, "B'socham," they'll rest in the Jewish people, because we don't have a base of Mikdash and Mishkan. So the base of Mikdash is now in us. V'shachanti b'socham in you. And every therapist in this room has holiness. B'socham in them. And what you are trying to give out to your clients. I'm not talking about necessarily Yiddishkeit. You're giving them hope. You're giving them peace. You're giving them emunah. You are making them little based on the Dutch. That's what we're doing as Nefesh and as therapy. So for me, to address this group of people that want to make Klal Yisrael a better person despite what's going on, despite again what everybody wants to say. And even those bloggers that say, "I want to help Yiddishkeit," they're not helping Yiddishkeit. You know how I help Yiddishkeit? By helping people like you do, make them happier people. Give them a simchas achayim. Give them a reason to live. That's what brings me to the final subject today. Our guest of honor. Moshe Mengrowski. Whatever I said about V'asali Mikdash v'shachanti b'socha, a person that has the emunah and has the goal in life to make people healthy and Yiddish at the same time. Moshe began his social work career with the New York Welfare Department. They were doing home visits. He moved to a staff position in Mishkan. In 1980, he became the Assistant Clinical Director of Counterforce, an agency formed by Torah Sarah. In that position, he has directed one of the major agencies in the Orthodox world, offering counseling to schools, interactive workshops. He also represents Counterforce on the task force on families and children at risk. In 1983, he became clinical director of the Yital Bell Helpline, the first volunteer telephone helpline for the Jewish community, manned by 40 mental health volunteers. Thousands of people have been helped. Perhaps most important in Moshe's tireless advocacy for mental health services. This can take the form of meeting with government grant overseers, pressing his superiors at Torah Sarah for greater awareness of mental health, or creating a registry for sex offenders. Moshe has been particularly passionate about the problem of sexual abuse. He's taken positions sometimes that are not so popular. But Moshe Mengrowski is the V'asali Mikdash. He wants to make a Mikdash in every person. V'shachanti b'socha, so that the Rebbeinu Shalom can reside in those people. It is my pleasure to give the Esther Solomon Award to my good and dear friend, Moshe Mengrowski. The Black Reeds. Yes, the Solomon Memorial Award presented to Moishe Grosser, LCSW, in recognition of his outstanding contribution to the mental health in the Torah community and his many years of service to our children and families. 16th Annual Nefesh International Conference, February 17, 2013. Yashikaya!